you say, out in the wilderness instead of focused on the mission. All this time and money that's been spent hasn't proved any collusion at all.
It hasn't proved collusion, and we're watching now what looks to be a battle shaping up between Speaker Ryan, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President on the issue of tariffs, for crying out loud. Ryan has found another way to embarrass himself and the Republican Party opposing this president. What do you make of it, and what do you think will unfold?
Well, I don't know. The thing that I would like to see the tariffs focus on first and foremost is China, because I think they are one of the biggest problems that we face in the world right now. And whether aluminum and steel are the best ones to go after China, or electronics and other kinds of things are. But you know, we have huge trade deficits all over the world, and it's a problem. The president's right to be concerned about it, but we also don't want to unravel supply chains that make America competitive either. But China's a menace.
Yeah, you know, those supply chains are the making of U.S. multinationals, though, not U.S. policy. U.S. policy has followed the dictate of K Street, the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce. Meanwhile, we haven't run a trade surplus in this country since 1975, Congressman. This president should be saluted by everyone for putting those tariffs on and saying we're done with free trade. That means it's going to cost us and American workers and working men and women and small business people fortunes. This has got to end.
You make a real good point about small business and suppliers to these companies, and I think that's a very important thing. And you know, there's no such thing as really free trade.
No, there sure hasn't been.
Freer trade. I mean, I think we've got to have a balance in how much trade deficit is reasonable and how much is, as you say, too prejudicial to our internal production capacity.
Well, let me give you a suggestion of what I think on how much is acceptable. 43 years of trade deficits by the world's strongest economy, consecutive years of trade deficits is just a monument to the power of K Street, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and U.S. multinationals. And it is really, really past time that we put the American citizen, who is more than a taxpayer and a consumer and a worker, as you know, first and foremost. And thank God we've got a president with the principle and the guts and the intelligence to do just that. And it's fun to watch everybody squirm as he does the right thing. Congressman, you get the last word.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for continuing to bring visibility to this horrendous out in the wilderness investigation. I think we ought to find out how much money Mueller spent and how many trees he's cut down and paper he's made to accomplish so little.
Congressman, great to have you with us as always. Thanks. Congressman Francis Rooney. Well, President Trump's insistence on imposing tariffs on imported aluminum and steel is rock-solid economic policy, long overdue. The perfect political decision as well, and it's simple to judge just how correct President Trump is on all of this. Just listen to all of the usual swamp creatures, the business establishment, K Street, the Business Roundtable, all of them howling and snarling about the president's insistence that U.S. trading partners no longer exploit our markets, but rather engage in fair, reciprocal, balanced trade. The Business Roundtable and the Chamber of Commerce are particularly upset because while they've bought and owned leaders in both parties on Capitol Hill for decades, they can't buy President Trump. That's why the establishment and the deep state are trying to obstruct and subvert Mr. Trump and his administration at every turn. One of the business establishment's most expensive purchases is, of course, Speaker Paul Ryan, who once again is attacking President Trump and these tariffs, helping as best he can in the efforts to frustrate the president and the will of the American people. Ryan is quite simply bought and paid for, so his motivation is clear, unlike his conscience. Ryan makes no sense on nearly every issue, and there is every reason to slap tariffs on steel and aluminum. The steel being dumped in this country is subsidized by governments, in particular China, priced dramatically below cost in each of those countries, and both steel and aluminum are strategic metals. The success of American producers and manufacturers is critical to the national security. Ryan, pure and simple, isn't working in the national interest on this issue. In my opinion, he should resign for that reason alone. Ryan and his lot have the temerity to argue with President Trump. They have become simply obstructionists. Look at the new Trump reality. Morons, some of them in the business press, tried to make a case that the Trump tariffs were misguided, that for 3 days last week the markets were falling because of the tariffs and the likelihood of a trade war. Now those markets today surged more than 1%. The Dow rallied more than 300 points as the president warned he will not back down. The markets have added trillions of dollars in value since he was elected. Consumer confidence at an almost 20-year high. Weekly jobless claims just hit the lowest level since 1969. Manufacturing is expanding at the fastest rate since 2004. And thanks to President Trump's tax reform and tax cuts, Americans' income after taxes saw the biggest gain in more than 5 years. This president has made it clear that he intends to put America first, to put American workers first, standing up to the establishment elites, multinationals, and K Street, who have had their way for several decades now, and at the expense of working men and women, their families, small business, and our middle class. President Trump is fighting for all of them, and he is the first president to recognize that we've been in a trade war with communist China and the Socialist European Union for 30 years now. He's the first president to decide it is time that America fight back. Now our quotation of the evening from President Ronald Reagan, who said, "The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave." Up next, the party